Senator Ted Cruz won the Wisconsin GOP primary by a landslide, grabbing 48% of the vote and a double-digit margin over Donald Trump. The results were pivotal for the Stop Trump movement in Wisconsin, a state where leading conservative radio voices have been working to put a dent in Trump's armor for quite some time. And then this week, the effort by conservative personalities went national with a message from radio host Mark Levin.
I am not voting for Donald Trump. Period. These bully, dirty tricks, Nixonian tactics, they're only going to backfire. They're only going to backfire. So count me as never Trump.
All right, let's bring in radio host Joe Madison here with me in D.C., radio host Heidi Harris in Las Vegas, and talk show host Michael Medved in Seattle. And Michael, I'm going to go to you first on this, because this morning on Meet the Press, Glenn Beck, who is, as you know, a big never Trumper, said that while he would never vote for Donald Trump, he thought it would be a terrible idea for the Republican Party to deny Trump the nomination if he had the most delegates and give it to Paul Ryan. So is there a limit, in your view, to how far never Trumpists will go?
Well, first of all, we're all very different. I mean, Glenn has signed on completely to the Ted Cruz campaign. He's campaigned side by side with Ted Cruz. I was anti-Trump before it was cool, and I'm not anti-Trump because I'm pro-Cruz. I actually think that the difference between Cruz and Trump would be the difference with Trump of certainly losing in a landslide, and the difference with Cruz of very likely losing. I would actually like to win the election and move America in a more conservative direction. And that means nominating somebody else, anybody else. And there are all kinds of names. It's not just Paul Ryan. It's Nikki Haley. It's John Thune. It's Governor Brian Sandoval of Nevada. It's some kind of new face that could actually unite the party and maybe actually win an election. That's what we need.
And you know what, Joe, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal that essentially was naming names of the national talk radio personalities that a lot of conservatives believe have been helping Donald Trump the whole time, handmaidening his movement to the detriment of the conservative movement. And I'll read you one. There's the Wall Street Journal's Brett Stevens. He wrote this, and I have some problems with what he said, but let's listen to what he said. In fact, Americans have often seen such figures. He includes Marcus Garvey, Henry Wallace, Joe McCarthy, Lyndon LaRouche. We just used to have the good sense to dismiss them as eccentrics, lowlifes, and clowns. What we haven't seen are the modern-day keepers of mainstream conservatism developing schoolgirl crushes on the bad boy of the GOP class. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not one to speak about conservative talk radio. I guess I'm the antithesis of it when you think about it. But it's identity radio. I mean, and it is very influential. I think what the consultants for these candidates need to understand is that unless something is changed, talk radio probably is the second most listened to radio format in the country, second only to country and western. So what you have are people who, one, have a loyal audience. You have a town hall debate, non-scripted, sometimes non-filtered conversation, all wrapped into one. And that's why it's so influential. So when I hear these names, and the reality is that this is what makes talk radio what it is today.
Yeah, and Heidi, isn't it the point, too, that, in the week, Michael Brendan Doherty wrote a piece where he talked about the symbiosis between national talk radio and really what Donald Trump is offering to voters on the Republican side. He said conservative talk radio has been far friendlier territory to Donald Trump than conservative magazines and writers have been. There have been occasional dissenters like Glenn Beck or the little bouts of panic, but overall talk radio shares the assessment of Trump offered by its leader, Rush Limbaugh, that there's more upside than downside. And other than Mark Levin changing his mind and now going against Donald Trump, he's been for it too. Isn't it true that conservative talk radio has fed the very narratives Trump is capitalizing on, whether it's on immigration or whether it's on just sort of alienation from government?
Well, I think there's no doubt that a lot of people who do like conservative talk radio are very anti-immigration. But, I feel like I'm living in a parallel universe because I am a real conservative, a social conservative, a fiscal conservative. I haven't changed my views, and I'm amazed at how many conservatives I know who are backing Trump. And I'm thinking the guy is half an inch thick on foreign policy. He doesn't know the issues. He's a narcissist, clearly. It's like a show here in Nevada. They like him because we're all about a show here in Nevada. I can't believe that the actual divide between Cruz supporters and Trump supporters has actually been pretty shocking to me. But to the point that talk radio decides elections, I would argue to Obama administration. Since I've been in talk radio, Obama's been elected twice, Clinton was elected twice. So clearly talk radio doesn't decide who the president's going to be.
Well, that's not true.
Okay, wait, hold on. Real quick,
because
Joe,
not
and
all
then we'll go to
talk
Michael.
radio is conservative.
Right.
And as one who has interviewed President Obama several times, he understands the importance of talk radio.
Yeah, absolutely, he does. But Michael, on the conservative side of the ledger, though, doesn't talk radio writ large, even though, as you said, each of these hosts are different, have to take some responsibility for the existence of a Donald Trump? I mean, talk radio, just in generalities, has fed the very alienation he's capitalizing on.
Without question. I mean, one of the things that I see feeding this is 4 years ago when Donald Trump was testing the waters for a run for president. His big issue was the Obama birth certificate, which I called out at the time as a racist trope, an inappropriate trope, a stupid issue. And that should have been totally denounced and should have made him completely persona non grata in the world of serious conservative talk. I do want to say one thing, Joy, and it's very important. I work for a company, Salem Communications. We syndicate my show to over 300 stations across the country. And Dennis Prager and Hugh Hewitt, and until very recently, Bill Bennett and Mike Gallagher. And none of our hosts, none of us have been Trump supporters or beating the drums for Trump at any time. And the fact that Rush has been friendlier to Trump and that Sean Hannity has been friendlier to Trump should not associate with all of talk radio, where you really do have different points of view.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But Heidi, for individual talkers, though, a lot of the audience is very similar. It's an overwhelmingly white audience. A lot of it is rural. It's a very hardcore Republican audience. Is there a risk? Charlie Sykes and other Wisconsin, very conservative radio hosts went after Trump, and they won, right? Donald Trump did not win in their state. But is there a risk for the national hosts separating themselves from the Trump phenomenon and potentially alienating their own listeners?
Well, it depends on the situation that you're in. If you work for a network that wants Donald Trump on for ratings, you don't want to go after him. I certainly can't speak for other hosts, but I can speak for myself and know that I don't endorse candidates. I think that's obnoxious. But my listeners do know that I prefer Cruz over Trump. And a lot of them are mad at me. They don't understand why I don't like Donald Trump. I don't dislike him. I just like him to go back and run his company, and not my country. So I'm willing to risk the wrath of my listeners to stand by what I believe are my conservative principles. And you have to be willing to do that as a host and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, and Joe, we are just close to being out of time, but you make a very important point that not all talk radio is conservative. Is there a countervailing force that you think is going to mass against Donald Trump, should he be the nominee, to really sort of stop what a lot of people do feel is a steamroll to the White House, potentially, on the basis of really ugly rhetoric about people of color, about Muslims, et cetera?
Oh, absolutely, because you're hearing it right now in this program. Here you have two conservatives who say they are true conservatives, and they understand that what Donald Trump really is a show. He has alienated, he has divided the conservative movement. Now, from my vantage point, I just sit back and let them do their thing. I mean, it's cannibalism, and let them go for it.
Yeah.
But there will be a convailing vote. No ifs, ands, buts about that.
Last word to you, Michael.
Jump in, very last point. The fact that the idea that the audience for talk radio is all white and is all extremely far right is simply not true.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, if you listen to my show and you look at the market analysis for my show, about a quarter of the people who listen to our show are African American, and we have callers all the time. And the truth of the matter is that's the future of the conservative movement. The future of the conservative movement has to be inclusive, big tent, and finding, again, that those leaders and those voices that can actually bring people together rather than dividing them.
Well,
all right, well, that's a good note to end it on. Yes, absolutely. Well, it sounds like Michael Medved did. Really appreciate all of you being here. Joe Madison will be back later in the program. Thank you so much to Heidi Harris and Michael Medved. Always great to talk to you, sir. All right.
Thank you.
After the break.